Hey everybody, Tag Life Done Free. Hey, today I'm going to share with you guys the video of Joel's visit once he got back to the community center. And it was great. You know, the first video we put out, he was speaking to the high school kids. The second video we put out, he was speaking to the administrators. And this video is him speaking to our community. And this is Joel, just a roundtable discussion, answering questions for a long time. It was a really great time to spend with him. I know that everybody really enjoyed it. After I get done putting this one out, we will also put out the after hours video of everything we did after all the talking was done and the hanging out and those kind of things. So anyway, if you're interested in watching Joel open table discuss these types of issues with an established large community, you might want to come check it out.
Perpetually sustainable. And what that means is that it lasts beyond us. We can't do that without you youngins. You guys play a critical role in all of this. And so, I just want to tell everybody, let's not forget that. This is an important thing. We can't continue a life of freedom if we don't target the kids, if we don't get them involved, and we don't change those thought processes early on. Tonight we're going to eat a gigantic meal, and this meal is completely farm to table. Everything was made homemade, from the dressings to the butter, to the desserts, to the ice cream, everything. And I just want to give a gigantic round of applause to those people who spent a week preparing for it. Finally, I wanted to share with you guys a little story how I met Joel, because I think it's hilarious. And so I was speaking at the Self-Reliance Festival in Camden, Tennessee. And I'm on stage and I'm just doing my thing, and you kind of get in your own little thing. And I look down and Joel Salatin's in the front row taking notes, and I'm telling you guys, I was like a 14-year-old girl the night before. I was that excited. I'm like, oh my God, Joel Salatin's taking notes. It was so cool. Little did I know, a year and a half later, I'd be asked to sit on a board that Joel sat on, and we've become great friends. When I asked him if he would come down here to speak to our community and to speak to all of you, he didn't even hesitate. And so, Joel, I want to tell you thank you for touching our school, and thank you for touching all of us. Joel's going to just spend some time with you guys. Question and answer, no real presentation. Let's just have some conversation and open and pretty quick we'll all eat. With that, Joel, I'll turn it to you. All right. Good. All right. I've got a pro strong boy. So, good. All right. The floor is open. It's a delight to be here. Tag, thank you for spearheading all this and making it happen. And I know you got a great team behind you. It's always other people that actually pull the heavy load. And I've always said I'm not that great a thinker. I've been blessed to hook my wagon to inches that are going places. And so that's kind of just the way it is. All right, so just places. And so that's kind of just the way it is. All right, so does anybody have a question?
Yeah. How many states and countries have you been in, and what's some common themes and maybe some unique things you ran into?
Oh, me. How many states and countries have I been in? So I've been in every state. I added it up not too long ago, 30 countries. Many, Australia 16 times. That's a long flight. And so a couple just unique things that come to mind real quickly is that Australia, many of you I'm sure are familiar with permaculture, Bill Mollison, Dave Holmgren, pasture cropping, Colin Seiss, keyline water systems, P.A. Yeoman, Regrarians, Darren Dougherty, stream bank restoration, Peter Andrews. All of these people are world-class, world famous on the cutting edge of ecological farming. I'm just going to say ecological farming because I think that regenerative is starting to get almost faddish and overused. So I'm always pushing the envelope on something else. So we can
say worm-friendly farming or something. But anyway, and the reason I think it's all coming out of Australia is because Australia, right now, and for a long, long time, has had the highest per capita income in the world. Now, it's not farming, it's mining. Coal, iron ore, they ship coal to China by the boatload, iron ore. You know, how does China build all this? How does China build their navy? They're getting iron ore from Australia. And so, but because it's a fragile environment, but they're rich, they're able to respond with innovation and creativity more than, for example, the Sahel in Africa, which is droughty, low rainfall, but poor. So having money enables these Australians to have the luxury of trying things. And so I think that's just an interesting, concept to realize that if you want to do innovative things, you can't just be, how do I put shoes on my feet every day? Now that does push you, hunger pushes you toward creativity, but a little bit of cash enables you to leverage the hunger and creativity to actually try something new, to take risk, And that's why profit is so important. And one of the reasons I think that American farmers today are so stuck in the mud and won't listen to innovative alternative ideas is because most of them feel like they don't have enough wiggle room to risk experimenting something and having a failure. And so they're scared to death to try alternative stuff. So I just met a guy from Nevada who farms 3,000 acres under irrigation in Nevada, and he's invented a biofertilizer that in 3 years he's gone from 1% to 4% organic matter in Nevada, and has gone from 0 earthworms to now 10 earthworms per cubic foot of ground.
Wow.
And it's because he had some extra cash that he was able to take this dream and capitalize on it with taking a risk to innovate something new. So that's just an interesting thought from that I've noticed in places. The impoverished places, the more financial or cash gets tough, you just get stuck, and you just can't see your way out often. So I don't apologize for having a farm that we've structured and pushed to be profitable. I don't apologize for profit. It's the lifeblood of innovation, creativity, and experimentation. The lifeblood of it. So anybody that is communist, socialist, and distributive income and eliminate profit, they don't know what they're talking about, in my opinion. So that's just one thing. I've eaten. Everywhere I go, of course, I like to eat what's available locally, and so that means that I've eaten some very, very strange things. The hardest one was in the Netherlands. They had TV cameras there to record me eating raw oysters, and
Hard pass.
man, I said, Lord, I'll put it down there, but you got to keep it. Man. Fortunately, they only made me eat one, but man, it's like a great big swallowing a big loogie. It's really, that's just not my thing. But anyway, it's always fun to see the local food stuff and the local things. Probably the one other thing, I've been to Europe so many times, and if you're familiar with all the farmer riots and stuff in the Netherlands, the tractor case that you've seen and all that, I have a little different take on that than a lot of people. And most people think, oh, they're just trying to shut down the farmers, they're trying to kill the farmers, blah, blah, blah. What most people don't realize is that for 50 years, almost 80% of the EU budget is farm subsidies. But they're not subsidies like we have here. They are green incentives. So you're in a side by side, you're going down the road in the Netherlands, and the farmer's telling you, okay, see that duck nest right there? I get $2,000 for that duck nest. See that hole in that hollow tree right there? I get $1,500 for that hole in that tree there. See that little tenth of an acre patch of wildflowers? I get $5,000 for that little tenth of an acre wildflower patch. And so, and every farmer in the Netherlands gets $2,000 a year per acre from the EU just for owning farmland. And so that's how you can go through Austria and Netherlands and stuff. You see these little, 30, 40 acre farms, and they're running $2 million worth of equipment on these farms. But it makes the price of land $40,000 an acre. So the land price gets exorbitant, but the farmers are literally half of the farmer income in the entire European Union. Half of their income is direct government subsidy. That helps you to understand how Trump sees how unfair it is that our military protects them. They give all their farmers these subsidies, don't buy American products. We're supposed to protect them. Are you with me? You see that? And so these dynamic elements, come into play when you're there and you see them. And so when I've been to the Netherlands, I don't know, 6, 7 times, a lot of seminars there, and what happens is, I'll give you an example. Met a young couple there, like this, and they introduced themselves to me. What do you do? Well, we're dairy farmers. Oh, really? Okay. How many cows do you milk? 100. How much land do you have? 10 acres. This is common. This is common. So everywhere you drive in the countryside, it smells like a septic system. And the nitrogen, the runoff fertilizer into the canals, Netherlands is full of canals, right? And it's so much, it clogs the canals, and so the water districts, they have all these canal cleaning water districts to keep it, because if the canal fills up and the water level rises 6 inches, suddenly that's the difference between you can get in your field with a tractor and you can't, okay? And so it clogs the water ditches so much. One of the biggest surprises I ever had doing a seminar was in the Netherlands. I'm sitting there with a room full of farmers this size, and I'm going through my thing about compost and deep bedding and all this stuff, and I suddenly was struck. I said, oh yeah, well, I hope this is applicable here, because biomass might be expensive here for you to get, wood chips and things for composting, for bedding, for livestock. And the whole room, they just started laughing. I said, what did I say? And they said, oh, here, because of all the extra biomass growth in these fertilizer-clogged canals, there are mountains of biomass. They'll bring it, you can have all you want to. but they're not using it. They're using chemical fertilizers, putting their poop in the canals and filling up the townships with unused piles of wood chip biomass. They don't know where to put it. I said, look, you guys, you got it. That's your carbon. You take the carbon, you put it on your fields, because the problem is that these fields, they were anaerobic in the wetlands. They drained them. When the oxygen hits them, they start to decompose all that bottom muck, and the fields start to sink. And in the Netherlands, 24 inches of elevation is the difference between a pond and arable land that you can drive a tractor on. And so these fields are becoming wetter and wetter and wetter. I said, look, you take that biomass and you put it on your fields and you replace that carbon that's burning out with the oxygenation now that you drained it, and you build it back up. That's how you build it. And that had never entered their mind. It never crossed their mind. But it was cool that they said, listen, we got all the biomass we need. And I was really heartened by it. It's exciting to me that they've got all this free biomass there. Here, we have to pay for it. There, because we can get all we want. It's limitless. And so those are just some. So some of the pushback on the farmers. I want you to understand, in Europe, you know, some of the tension you see is that all these farmers on the dole, and if you notice, those tractor cages, they're always great big tractors. They're not little tractors, they're big tractors, okay? And so it's very much an industrial farming pushback as the termination of some of these subsidies and some of these programs start to back off. And frankly, it is a tiring of the people, because, you know, population is a lot more dense in Europe, so everybody lives near all the confinement houses. I mean, in the Netherlands, nobody grazes their animals. They're all in confinement houses. Now, they're not as big as ours, but everything is under confinement. Austria. But because it's a fragile environment, but they're rich, they're able to respond with innovation and creativity more than, for example, the Sahel in Africa, which is droughty, low rainfall, but poor. So having money enables these Australians to have the luxury of trying things. And so I think that's just an interesting, concept to realize that if you want to do innovative things, you can't just be, how do I put shoes on my feet every day? But a little bit of cash enables you to leverage the hunger and creativity to actually try something new, to take risk. And that's why profit is so important. And one of the reasons I think that American farmers today are so stuck in the mud and won't listen to innovative alternative ideas is because most of them feel like they don't have enough wiggle room to risk experimenting something and having a failure. And so they're scared to death to try alternative stuff. So I just met a guy from Nevada who farms 3,000 acres under irrigation in Nevada, you know, and he's invented a biofertilizer that in 3 years he's gone from 1% to 4% organic matter in Nevada. And it's because he had some extra cash that he was able to take this dream and capitalize on it with taking a risk to innovate something new. So that's just an interesting thought from that I've noticed in places. The impoverished places, the more financial or cash gets tough, you just get stuck, and you just can't see your way out. So I don't apologize for having a farm that we've structured and pushed to be profitable. I don't apologize for profit. It's the lifeblood of innovation, creativity, and experimentation. I was in the Netherlands. They had TV cameras there to record me eating raw oysters. And
Hard pass.
man, I said, Lord, I'll put it down there, but you got to keep it. Man, oh man. Fortunately, they only made me eat one. But man, I mean, it's like a great big swallowing a big loogie. It's just not my thing. But anyway, it's always fun to see the local yokel food stuff and the local things. Probably the one other thing, I've been to Europe so many times, and if you're familiar with all the farmer riots and stuff in the Netherlands, the tractor caves that you've seen and all that, I have a little different take on that than a lot of people. But most people think, oh, they're just trying to shut down the farmers, or trying to kill the farmers, blah, blah, blah. What most people don't realize is that for 50 years, almost 80% of the EU budget is farm subsidies. Tenth of an acre patch of wildflowers, I get $5,000 for that little tenth of an acre wildflower patch. And so, and every farmer in the Netherlands gets $2,000 a year per acre from the EU just for owning farmland. And so that's how you can go through Austria and Netherlands and stuff. You see these little, 30, 40 acre farms, and they're running $2 million worth of equipment on these farms. But it makes the price of land $40,000 an acre. With me, you see that? And so these dynamic elements, come into play when you're there and you see them. And so when I've been to the Netherlands, I was 6, 7 times, done a lot of seminars there, and what happened is, I'll give you an example. Met a young couple there, like this, and they introduced themselves to me. What do you do? Well, we're dairy farmers. Oh, really? Okay. How many cows do you milk? 100. How much land do you have? 10 acres. This is common. This is common. So everywhere you drive in the countryside, it smells like a septic system. And the nitrogen, the runoff fertilizer into the canals, Netherlands is full of canals. And it's so much, it clogs the canals, and so the water districts, they have all these canal cleaning water districts to keep it, if the canal fills up, that's your carbon. You take the carbon, you put it on your fields, because the problem is that these fields, they were anaerobic in the wetlands. They drained them. When the oxygen hits them, they start to decompose all that bottom rock, and the fields start to sink. And in the Netherlands, 24 inches of elevation is the difference between a pond and arable land that you can drive a tractor on. And so on the farmers, I want you to understand, in Europe, some of the tension you see is that all these farmers on the dole, and if you notice, those tractor caves, they're always great big tractors. They're not little tractors, they're big tractors. Okay? And so, but because because so many people live next to them. They're not rural like this. People live right next to them, so they smell them. And in the Netherlands, they can smell all the canals with like sewers. Well, the people get tired of the whole country smelling like a septic tank. And so this is some of the backlash. So the stuff that you
This isn't rocket science. It's like, are the universities so tied to chemical industrial supply companies that the universities don't even think of that? I mean, I think that's part of the trouble in the United States. We're still tied to industrial chemical companies feeding the universities on what we should and shouldn't do, and we got to use another chemical to do something when it's agriculture practices that would solve the problem. I mean, where does that is that part of the problem? Or I mean,
if your question is, are they so tied up to chemicals that you can't even imagine something different? The answer is yes.
and then but I would think there'd be some university in those regions that would have some knowledge what we're talking about. I mean, are their heads in the sand, or they're just getting so much money from chemical companies that they're not even going to open their mouth or they get fired tomorrow?
It's a fraternity. It's a fraternity of ideas. They've all been to the same party. They drank the Kool-Aid, and they're operating under the same paradigm. So yes, we have this saying, "I'll believe it when I see it." Actually, that's wrong. You'll see it when you believe it. Because your belief system, your paradigm is so powerful, it keeps your eyes from even observing what's obvious.
So the farming gene, or the ag gene as it were, for lack of a better term, seems to be recessive, and it might skip a generation or two. What advice would you give to folks that are facing the challenge of that generation gap and they have no one to leave all the hard work and the legacy to?
Okay, so succession is a huge issue. In fact, it is absolutely the elephant in the room in American agriculture, as well as a lot of other. The average American farmer is 60, the average Japanese farmer is 70. And they've got no kids over there in Japan. They're paying couples to have kids, like Singapore and South Korea, paying them $15,000 just to have a baby. So let me back up just a little bit. If you're going to have a succession plan, you've got to have a successor. And in order to have a successor, you've got to have a business that is attractive to the next generation. And an unbelievable amount of farms are not attractive to the next generation. They're not making money. All they hear is dad complaining about, weather, price, pestilence, and disease. Everything's negative. And we're victimized by this, that, and the other. And so we have been now several decades creating a farm paradigm that is not attractive to the next generation. So what I'm getting at is the problem is not the young people. I can tell you at our farm, we have 100 applicants every year for 10 spots. And tonight I'm unbelievably privileged and honored to have one of our stewards here from last year, Brianna. If anybody wants to ask about the experience, I know she'd be glad to talk with you. But why, when most farmers now can't get no help, right? Can't get no help. Where are you going? Well, who wants to help a guy that just sits around all day complaining about the weather, price, and pestilence, and disease, and who won't pay him or won't provide an opportunity that is attractive? And so it's imperative for the older generation to have Yeah, this is where, you know, I see all that everybody starts to look around. For the older generation to begin a succession plan, to have a place that is attractive emotionally, financially, physically, and spiritually. And I can tell you, you know, when Teresa and I got married, we're 45 years this year, but literally right when we got married that early, we didn't have kids yet, but we started down a pathway of, our goal is we're going to have at least 2 salaries here, if not 3. In fact, one of my most treasured possessions is a yellow piece of paper that my dad called me into his sick room in about 1987. We'd been on the farm full time for only about 5 years and had just kind of gotten over the hump. Okay, I think we're gonna make it. And Dad said, come in with a piece of paper and pencil. And went in, what in the world does he want? Went in there in bed and he said, let's brainstorm how many salaries could be generated from this small farm. And so we spent about an hour brainstorming, came up with 22 full-time salaries. Today, 22 people earn their living from our farm. Okay? In a scarcity mentality. Working too hard, working too long, not enough money, there's not enough, it's drouthy, there's not enough fertility, not enough, right? Nothing's enough, okay? And my dad lived in a spirit of abundance. It's limitless. There's no end to it. Now, farmers aren't the only ones who have this problem, but we certainly see it manifested in farming as much as any place. And so the transition we have to go through right now, and the average American farmer is now 60 years old. In the next 15 years, 50%, half of all American agriculture equity, land, buildings, equipment, not to mention skill and wisdom, okay? But just the assets, half of all American agriculture assets are going to change generational hands in the next 15 years. It's never happened in peace. Now, I'm not saying we're getting ready to be conquested. Maybe we are, maybe we aren't. I don't know. I don't know. But I am saying that if we pull this off in peace, we'll be the first civilization to ever do so. Which is pretty risky ground if you think about it. Okay. And so, what I tell 60-year-old farmers that are suddenly realizing I've got a problem is, what are you going to change today to make your situation attractive to a young person? It might be the only thing you can do is find somebody to inherit it to. I mean, literally. Interestingly, today we went and had lunch at this
Red Rock Ranch.
Red Rock Ranch. I went in and talked to Bill, the guy that I want to talk a little bit. I went in and talked to him. He's got 3 kids, and the young man that lives across the road and works for him and helps him, he's inheriting the farm. Okay. This isn't about love, folks. This isn't about love.
Yeah.
It's about stewardship. The parable of the talents in the Bible. Jesus had 3 guys. He gave one, you know the story. He gave one 5, one 3, and one 1. Does anybody ever say, well, apparently he didn't love that one guy very much? No. What did he give them the talents for? Each according to, remember? Yes, good. His ability. That's right. wasn't a matter of love, it was a matter of stewardship. You know, it sounds un-American, it sounds unfamily, it sounds almost unloving to say, find a young person to inherit it to. But if you want legacy, if you want the farm not to be broken up, what normally happens is it's given in undivided equal portions to 3 kids, none of whom wants it, and it gets either broken up in 3 pieces or sold to BlackRock or Bill Gates or Vanguard or Cargill or something, okay? And we desperately need, and we've been through this numerous times with people, you know, where I want it to stay as a farm. Well, then either give it away or sell it for half price. No, we want full market value. Well, you know, enjoy. And so somewhere somebody has to blink first here, okay, in this successional plan. And it's, in my view, it's up to the young people to develop a track record of stewardship so that they are worthy. That's a big issue. You've got to show you're worthy, which means you've got to be doing things. You've got to be creating a track record. In other words, you got to be working. You got to be serving somebody, and don't worry about how much you pay. To be surrounded by 20+ bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, enthusiastic young people that can't wait to do what I've done didn't come because we just sat around complaining about the weather, price, testing, and it came because we had vision, dream, and strategy to create a place. All the cash, the life insurance policies, the car, the gold, the silver, the stocks and bonds, or whatever, Now, is that value as much as the land? No. But I asked him, I said, so yeah, the land's worth, whatever it is, $3 million, let's just say. So how do I get that? Well, you have to sell it. You want me to sell it? No, I don't want you to sell it. So how do I get it? I guess you don't. So what's its actual value to me if I never sell it? I gotta pay taxes on it, keep the roofs on the buildings, keep the fences up, keep the fields clean. You could run away with a bunch of cash in your pocket. Oh, that kind of settled the discussion down. So the protection for the seeming unfairness is to reach far enough beyond the grave that if the inheritor ever sells, the other ones get part of that sale, and it doesn't have to be split, even, but in other words, something. And then suddenly that takes that child's just sucking up to mom and dad so they can get the farm, and they're going to sell it and go off, millionaires.
That's right.
Yep.
Are you wanting an easement put on that property where it can't be plowed? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm in the research. I mean, I don't know. I just don't ever want it to be broke up to grow corn.
You're talking maybe some
So I'm just out there.
Yeah, you're casting.
I'm out in the space.
All right, good. Yeah, there's a good. You guys have comments?
Yes, about, so I do farm succession.
No, you're censored. You're censored.
Okay, I was gonna stay out of it, but I have
Go
one
ahead.
little tweak, just
Comments.
one tiny little tweak.
Comments. Yeah, fair. Yeah, fair. Always ready for comments.
So in our older generation, younger generation, the way it made it sound, and I don't think this is the way your family did it, was that the older generation should be building up or investing in things that are going to necessarily attract this person to come to them. I think it's a much more efficient a process to get the relationship and be open-minded on how to reinvest the assets that we have to create a viable equity relationship with this new generation. If you go out and most farmers are going to go out and buy a brand new lineup of machinery to attract this young person. The young person can't afford the new lineup of machinery. And so it creates this big debacle. But I think it's just being open to the idea of, I can sell my stuff. I can reinvest it into other things to make this farm viable for the succession relationship to work.
The whole, I mean, I didn't even discuss the communication aspect of this, which of course is the big thing. The actual nuts and bolts of working out an arrangement are not that big. The big part is the relationship. And what's normally happens is the young people get run off of the farm because dad won't let them ever make a decision. And so the young people never feel like they can, and then dad gets older, and now because the young people have been run off because he won't let them make a decision, now he's 10, 15 years older and suddenly wants them to come back, but he can't trust them with anything because he never gave them enough rein to find out if they could drive the horse. So here's what we got to do. We got to make both parties happy. Dad and Mom, what are you willing to let go for these guys to make a decision on? 5 acres, 10 acres, 100 acres? What is it? You've got to let something go. There's something you've got to be willing to risk for them to establish some track. Now, obviously, this is making up for years of not working together well. Okay. Feel pretty good. But emotionally, it's out of my. If I died today, tomorrow, it wouldn't even bother me. And that is just one of the great. And we told both of our kids when they hit kind of teenage years, I'll never push you into the farm. I'll never love you less if you don't want the farm. But if you don't, I'm going to find a young person to give it to because it's way more important than you.
I'm not a farmer. I'm really impressed by everybody in this room and what they're doing. But I am really interested in what's happening nationally and globally with all the things going on with our trade policies and economics and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of conversation right now about increasing energy demands related to the need to win the artificial intelligence race. And I'm thinking about like nuclear fission and some of the new things that they're going to do to produce energy. And I am understanding that there's some thorium in western Kansas, and I'm just curious, do you have any concerns about how increasing energy demands may impact farming ecology either in Kansas or across the nation?
I have concerns about everything that's coming down from the federal level. Yeah, I do. I mean, we're going down the same trajectory that we're pretty creative as humans. I mean, we're made in the image of God, so we're pretty creative. And my dad used to say, we're so creative we can invent things, we can overrun our headlights. We can invent things we can't physically, spiritually, or morally metabolize. And then AI became avian influenza, and now it's artificial intelligence. Okay, so every abbreviation becomes its own context. Anyway, one of my biggest concerns about AI, numerous, but one is that it takes away personal responsibility. This precision farming is that all the decisions on your farm will be made from a nameless, faceless AI beast somewhere. Nobody ever set foot on your farm. Nobody set eyes on your farm. Wendell Berry talks about this. He talks about in order to farm well, you have to love it. And in order to love it, you have to know it. And you can't know but so many things. And that's why polygamy doesn't work. You know, one woman is about all a guy can learn to know.
Hallelujah!
Yeah, I'm quite concerned about a lot of those things. Good question. What else?
So, with me raising broilers and more selling it and thought about going more commercial routes. I bought a broiler barn out of Arkansas to maybe do more of a commercial bird, and then we'd have our pasture-raised birds as our premium product. On processing, since we only have one processor in the state and they're 2 hours away, what could we do to get a processor here, if it's a co-op or just financing it myself?
All right, so the question is poultry processing here. Does anybody know where Kansas is on the public law 90-492? PL 90-492. If Roseanne Ballman was here, she would know right up straight. I think Kansas is a PL 9492 state. In other words, it's at the by law or just because
by
it's on
choice.
the market? By choice.
It's like your oyster.
Yeah.
Nobody eats oysters around here.
I think I had the biggest problem selling the feet. The backs, I have the issue kind of selling the backs. It's just kind of hard to market.
Liver.
Oh, I sell
So,
liver pretty good.
well, you sell some, but.
Do you have a
what
Weston
it
A.
is-
Price chapter around here? Weston A. Price
There's
Foundation?
one in Wichita and one in Salina, I think.
Okay. Well, I mean, the Weston A. Price
The other idea
Foundation,
is to make dog treats.
dog treats, you can do that.
But you have to have a license for that.
You have to have a license for dog treats.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
just a $25
No,
license?
that's $200 license.
$200 license.
So I use my feet for chicken stock for my dog food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I collect them. I'm kind of a
Yeah.
hoarder of chicken feet.
So I got a whole bunch of them for that.
all right, so there are several ways to proceed to look at all these things. One is, just do it. Just do it. Defy them.
Oh man, this is scary.
Remember that the only person that the regulators respect is your elected politician. You can have your customers buy, pre-buy the chicken, and then pay you a janitorial fee, a caretaker's fee to take care of it. So you're not selling chicken. You're simply caretaking their chicken. It's an adjuster's agreement. You could do a butchering tutorial. Buy my butchering tutorial for $100, and part of the curriculum supplies is you get 5 chickens, and they sign on to your internet tutorial and pay $100, and you give them 5 chickens, and you're not selling chickens, you're selling education and giving the chickens away. Okay. This is one of the reasons why John Moody and I started back in early 2020, we started the Rogue Food Conference. The Rogue Food Conference, we've had now 6, 8 of them. We move them around the country, all over the place. And the next one's in Cincinnati in this fall. And our mantra is circumvention, not compliance. There comes a time when the most efficient way to deal with the bureaucracy is not trying to figure out, okay, how do I jump through their hoops? How do I comply? How do I get the license? Sometimes the most efficient path is figuring out a way around it. Compelling and attractive enough that you'll get help. Help should never be a problem. Should never be a problem. My dad used to say, the world still stops to look at a burning bush. We need to be a burning bush. You be a burning bush and the world will still stop to look. So I'm gonna take it back. All right. I see a lot of opportunity, possibility here. Okay. Okay. Don't say I can't. High school friends, whatever. Labor should not be a problem.
Your new thought process ought to be, I can.
Yeah, I can, and I'm gonna make a place where young people wanna come and be a part of it. Or, old people.
Some classes are how to butcher chicken. There's a lot of people that don't know.
Yeah, how to butcher chicken, yeah, that's great, yes.
There's a lot of people running around.
An example would be, the guy I worked with, who grew 3 acres of vegetables. Tomatoes was his big. Towards the end of the growing season, he offered a group of people in town everything in the garden free, and they did the cleanup. They did all the cleanup on his 3 acres of garden, everything.
That's a big garden. 3 acres of garden is a bit, that
So,
makes me.
30 people would come out and do this work for him in less than a day, part of a day. It'd take him days and days and days. And he said, this is produce I can't really do anything with. It's to that point they could just also, green stuff. I mean, it was just, it was no brainer. He said, why would I hire someone to do this or do it myself, or I'll do it for free and utilize the produce?
I think in North Carolina they actually developed a program called a labor bomb. I think that's what they call it, labor bomb, where they essentially make a day of farm work a party. But we rent a lot of land where we can't, where it's difficult to do. Where it's difficult to do what we do at home, because we live at home. We've got the chipper there, we've got the forest, we've got we've got compost capacity, all that. So it's difficult to do it on the rental land. And so my next the next hill I'm climbing in my own farm experience is biofertilizers. Okay? We've never owned a sprayer because we never spray anything. So here we are, this multi-million-dollar farm now, we don't have a sprayer. I mean, good night. What farm of that size doesn't have a sprayer, for crying out loud? But all these bioferts, I'm talking about compost tea, worm pea, I call it worm pea. It's the juices from a worm bed. Algae, fish emulsion, all this stuff, all of that. It's all foliar. It's all foliar spray, and so I can't even do an experiment with this stuff. So this guy out in Nevada I was just telling you about, this stuff is a foliar spray, $35 an acre. Hey, if we could actually, if his snake oil does on our rental land what I saw it appeared to do on his Nevada cropland, it's worth $35 an acre on our rental land to double production. I was speaking up in at the Food Independence Summit in Sugar Creek, Ohio last year, and of course when I go to a trade show, fair, whatever, I want to go and visit all the vendors and see what they're doing. And I walked by this one guy, it was cool. It was a very bootstrap setup. He had this little flatbed trailer with about 3 IBC totes on it, and these were worm beds, and he had a spigot on the bottom, and he was draining worm pea into this thing. And he came up to me, and he knew who I was, okay? And he just didn't even bow. He looked right at me and says, "I can double your production tomorrow." That's a pretty bold statement to me, all right? And because we've done fairly well at increasing production and fertility. And it got my attention, so I went around to his stand. I bought his book. He had a little book there, so I went home and I read it. Man, if this is really what it's purported to be, this is serious. And so I'm totally interested in all of this stuff now. So I've given the green light, and Teresa has okayed it. She's the treasurer, so you can't spend any money without going through the boss, the big boss. So we're looking for a sprayer. We're going to buy a sprayer, and then I can't tell these people, well, I can't try it because I don't have a sprayer. So that takes that excuse off the table. Now I can't say I can't anymore. All right, now.
Or maybe you could do biochar. Could you inoculate it with this juice, and then you wouldn't need a sprayer, and you could broadcast that in chip and form? I mean, is there another possibility of the way you could get it out there without a sprayer?
I don't know any possibility. I mean, I've played with some biochar. I think it's very overrated. Listen, where we are in the movement, it's not every day, but I mean, routinely, I get emails and brochures, unsolicited, from people that have the answer to everything. They want me to endorse it, use it, and then suddenly everybody's gonna use it. And so we have tried many, many things. And so far, only thing that works every time is compost. That's what, I mean, we've done dehydrated poultry manure, organic, all different kinds of things, and compost works. It actually works, and I'm wanting to discuss it.
So I assume this snake oil that you're doing, do you guys pull soil samples to see what it is that the land needs?
We never pull soil.
Okay.
We watch vegetation.
Okay.
You can get books on weeds, what they tell, weeds are in the soil. All the different weeds have different indicators of deficiencies. And so if you learn to read your plants, you can read your soil.
Have you ever had compaction issues with the rotation of animals?
Oh, you mean like pugging in a wet time?
Yeah, or just magnesium tying up the soil and just not getting enough oxygen into the soil.
Carbon. Earthworm castings. You know, this time of year we walk out through there and you can hardly walk for the earthworm castings. They're up this high, people turn their ankles off. You have people come out with tape recorders and tape the earthworms sucking in. What brings earthworms? Carbon. An earthworm takes in material, X amount of material, and excretes X amount of material. In other words, he excretes the same amount of material he took in. He took in a pound, excretes a pound. But the pound he excretes has 5 times the calcium, 7 times the phosphorus, 11 times the potassium of what he took in. There's grass right up along the edge of it.
It's green.
What does that look like?
Good.
Yeah.
And
So,
you know, and I was worried about this gigantic pile would be a fire hazard, so I had them put it in windrows, you know, about as tall as this ceiling, and then I've got them about 8 foot apart, and I've just got windrow after windrow after windrow of wood chips. Because I didn't want it to go to waste somehow or another. It's a natural resource.
Yeah.
I was going to not let it go to waste.
You're a
I
smart
raised
man.
I raised my hand.
Yeah, but your smarts stopped too soon.
Yeah.
What you should have done.
That happens.
He was a genius until.
But maybe I can get smarter. I'm listening.
So what I would have done, do you have cattle?
Yes.
How do you feed your cattle in the winter?
I'm a grazer. I don't put it in lines.
You don't feed hay in the winter?
Well, I did a few years ago, but 2 or 3 years ago, my cousin was taking his cattle all the way to St. Francis, Kansas. And I'm in my mid-70s. So he was needing a place to go with his cows. And we were sitting there, I said, I've got enough summer grass for your cow herd and my cow herd. So today, they only come for grazing in summer and they leave this place in the winter.
Yeah, you told me about this.
Yeah.
Yes, you told me. Yeah. Too many people. Sorry.
Yeah.
So what I would have done if I were you, if I'm not wintering, I mean, if you're wintering cows, we believe in the deep bedding, blah, blah.
Yeah.
All right. If you're not doing that, rent, buy, borrow, steal, whatever, a manure spreader, and just start spreading it.
Yeah, that's kind of.
Just start spreading.
But I thought maybe
especially now that it's been there for 5 years, it's actually not fresh and raw, and it's partly broken down.
Yeah.
And you can just spread that on your land, go as far as you can, as far as it will go, and just start spreading it, and it will absolutely feed the soil. Where we have chipped, like along a fence line, you got trees like growing over a fence line. We go in and clean it, we chip, and where you don't always get everyone up in the trailer, in the truck, and it blows out the edges. Blow out the edges. Within 2 or 3 years, that just becomes this green clump with that carbon breaking down. So yeah, just spread it.
Have you torn into those piles? Have you torn into them and dug in them?
No, I haven't.
I'm moving some now. They're white. The inside is white. It's a fungal smorgasbord. And so I'm hauling into the house right now. And they're half dirt. They're the same age. They're 5 years old, probably 5 years old since they went through. It's half dirt. It's just the most amazing stuff.
Yeah, it really is. Wood chips. The wood chips are so much better than sawdust because sawdust is such small pieces that the table there's way more chairs around the table for the microbes, and so that it actually becomes nitrogen decreasing initially because the nitrogen is what's feeding the microbes. Is being used up faster than it's being replaced.
These are chips, you know, about.
Exactly. So wood chips are big enough.
The deal is they had a chipper. It was a 1200 horse cat engine on it, and they would stick a whole tree through that, and it would just meow.
Yes, sir.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah, ours is just a little 120 horsepower, but it'll take 19-inch material. We stick 40-foot trees in it. It just eats them up. Gives you a cubic yard every 2 minutes. That's our fertilizer bill. That's our fertilizer bill, and we don't have to rely on Vladimir Putin for fertilizer.
I'm ready to make biofertilizer, and I'm going to use it with some farmers on row crop. And we want to use foliar applications, but we want to use some sap and some tissue testing. Do you have recommendations on sap or tissue testing, or have you used it, or is it worth it? Or
I've never used it, never done it. We just keep putting on compost. I'm a simple guy. Just keep putting on compost. You can't.
John Kim's wants all the time. He wants sap. John Kim.
Oh, John Kim wants sap. Yeah. And in general, I'm a believer in that. It's much more accurate because the soil changes so much based on season, moisture, cold, hot, that sort of thing. The tissue sample actually gives you something. Yeah.
The onset of the biofertilizers and all the biostimulants, that from the grand scale of our entire food system, we're sort of just kind of, I mean, it's a net good if we're kind of using that instead of synthetic fertilizers. But my question is, with all this talk about carbon and just the system, we're just adding another Band-Aid that's going to change our, like, it's almost like a globalization of microbes at this point, rather than looking at strategy and looking at what resources you're going to use. Cycle those kind of things. I'm just curious of your thoughts for what that looks like into the future.
Yeah, so the question is, so this bio-first, is this heading us down the same pathway of dependency on other people and not actually, being in situ? And so philosophically, I'm a complete believer that a piece of land should be self-sufficient in its fertility development. Nobody hauled Moroccan soft rock phosphate in here to build the prairie soil. It's a Premier 120 horse. Well, I wish I could give you the number off the side of it, but it's a big one.
And the redwood is, and just funny, it's like back in the
Well, yeah, the best carbon is deciduous trees during the green leaf stage, because the leaves are by far and away the most nutritious. Sawdust only comes from the stem of a plant, and so it's not nearly as nutritious as out on the tips and the leaves. That's where the real nutrition is. The little buds and all that.
Cows go after them when you cut them down.
Yes, indeed they do. Yeah, cows will go after it. Yes.
You know, 20 years ago when we were converting farm ground back to grass, we planted the grass, the speed dial, getting it started, even though my fertility wasn't bad, I was worried about that top quarter inch. So I had 7 different legumes, a pound of each, and I spread 100 pounds of Pell Line and 100 pounds of 1150-2O, and I threw the seed in the blender at the fertilizer place and mixed it together, and I frost seeded, and I had really good luck frost seeding, and I just guess I got what I needed in that crop 1/4 inch to get those legumes started. And I had really good luck getting frost seed and getting all those going.
That's great, yeah.
But I thought I needed that 100 pounds of pale lime and that top 1/4 inch of soil.
I'm not gonna fall out with you over that. That's cool. That's all right. Yeah, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Anybody that converts cropland into brindle pasture, I'm all for. Say, well, you're buying feed for your chickens. Yeah, and that's the most hypocritical part of our farm. In my perfect world, there would be no chicken sales and no chicken industry, because everybody would be feeding their kitchen scraps to their chickens. I mean, Pat Foreman showed in the book City Chicks, she showed that if 1 in 3 American households had enough chickens to eat their kitchen scraps, there would be no egg industry in the U.S.
I know. You know, I've always been a big believer in that, you know, we weed a garden because we want the produce. Community works the same way, right? If you want what comes out of it, you have to be willing to put, you know, what's in it. One of my big fears is our supply chain, right? And we are so removed from it. I don't know how much preaching we can do until the soccer moms and the NASCAR dads feel enough pain to change the system, because the costs are more, right? Doing business with your local farmer costs more. How do we convince the everyday person that spending that additional money is worth it? That it's actually cheaper in the long run? Because I battle this all the time. And I know you and I have had this discussion. Your answers are amazing and can share.
So how do you get people to spend the extra money on good food?
Yeah.
Yeah, most people are willing to spend good money for their pet food, but not for their children's food.
Yeah.
So whenever somebody says, I don't have money to buy your stuff, I will say, quick, we're going to go to your house. We're going to go to your house. Take me to your house. I hold them by the hand. And I'm sure here's what we're not going to see. We're not going to see takeout. We're not going to see coffee. We're not going to see alcohol. We're not going to see tobacco. We're not going to see lottery tickets. We're not going to... With me? The truth is, if you, and I know this is very politically incorrect to say, but there is actually very little authentic poverty in the U.S.
Amen.
Very, very little. I'm not saying there isn't, okay? But very, very little. I mean, like probably 5% of what's actually on the government records, okay? So most of the time, people tend to have money for what they value. And you don't have to go on a Disney vacation. You don't have to get your children that shiny bauble from China. You don't even have to have a flat screen TV. You don't even have to have a Netflix subscription. Okay? There's a lot of things you don't need. So the first thing is the priorities, the expenditure priorities. That's the first thing. Second thing is to realize that this food is far more nutritious. For example, grass-finished beef has as a rule, has 300% more riboflavin than grain-finished beef. 300% more. For you math-challenged people, that means it's 3 times as much. Okay? 3 times as much. Well, what's the importance of riboflavin? Riboflavin is known as the calming essential fatty acid. Okay. You wonder why we've got bullying in schools, why we've got screaming, crazy partisanship, we've got shooting schools and road rage and everything else. People are riboflavin deficient. They're not calm. Okay. You know, we submitted our chickens years ago, our eggs, to a nutrition study. 12 of us in the country sent them to the lab. Bastard eggs. I'll just pick one. Folic acid. The USDA, official USDA nutrition label on an egg carton says that an egg contains 48 micrograms of folic acid per egg. Our eggs average 1,038 micrograms per egg. This is a critical one for pregnant women. Okay? So I could go on and on. The Bionutrient Food Association, Dan Kittredge, is now examining, and it's nothing that farmers message on their branding. It has nothing to do with climate. location, organic, breed, age. The only thing that makes a difference, and basically it doubles all nutrients across the board. Some it doubles, some it triples, some it quadruples. But basically across the board it doubles every nutrient. The one thing that makes it more nutrient than the counterparts is how many different plants did the cow eat. It's the diversity of the sward. And when you realize that the Native American prairie, and here we are right in the middle of the Native American prairie, what used to be the Native American prairie. Native American prairie has 60 species of grass and about 1,200 species of forbs. Weeds, forbs, okay? That's how many different species. The average prairie had almost 200 species of diversity per acre. And in one plowing, one moldboard plow experience, it takes nature 100 years to bring all those different varieties of plants back. That's how disturbing and how disruptive one moldboard plowing is one time. Never before have we had a culture that has been this fat and this undernourished. Okay? And so we eat and eat, but we're not satisfied. And so this kind of high quality food that is actually nutrient dense is absolutely worth something. I'll tell you a little story. I had a lady come into the sales building one day, had this little 6-year-old boy. He looked about 4. He was very, very small. She said, he won't eat anything. He's such a finicky eater. He just, back to the doctor, he's way under, under what physical development profile. Really worried about it, really concerned about it. I mean, he seems bright enough. She said he just won't eat anything. So she bought some eggs. She called me 5 days later. She said, he's eating 6 eggs a day. 6 eggs a day. Now you tell me, if you were a mom with a little finicky eater that you were concerned about his development, and suddenly were able to see him chow down on 6 eggs a day, would you pay for those eggs? Yeah, I would. And she bought ground beef from us, and she went home. 2 weeks later, she was back and bought more, and here's her story. She took that ground beef home, and her husband gave her the raspberries for going out there in a dirt road in the country and buying. Come on, just go to Costco, go to Walmart, get ground beef, doesn't make any difference. She said, well, I'm gonna try this place. So she came out to us and got the ground beef and went home. Well, they had this little Pekingese dog, these little fur balls. And this dog would never eat any meat. When she went to the store and got meat, it would never eat anything. And it just didn't care. Well, she got home, she's fixing supper with ours, and the dog's coming up, and the dog's just bedeviling her. Just, and rubbing on her ankles or legs. You don't want this stuff. What's the deal? You're crazy. So she finally bedeviled her to death. She finally dropped some meat on the floor, and the dog ran over and just snarfed it right up. And right at that moment, her husband walked in the kitchen, saw the dog eat the piece of meat. He said, I have no idea where you went, and I know I gave you a hard time for going there, but that's the only meat I'm going to eat the rest of my life. People trust their dogs more than anything else. Plates of the 4 burgers out here for people to see, and the grease to measure and all this stuff, all right? And so I went home and I had these guys. I said, I'm not going to eat this. It's been out in the sun all morning. I don't want to do it. See if I can repeat that lady's Pekingese dog trick. So we have 4 cats. We don't have dogs. We have 4 cats in the house. So I went out on the back porch and I called the cats and I put the 2 plates out. And I purposely put the store-bought ground beef, the patties, where the cats would come to it first. So they come running, all 4 cats, they come from under the bushes, they come and they sniff over this plate from the store, and then they leave it and they go over to our plate, and all 4 of them congregated around our plate. This plate's sitting here not getting anything eaten. They eat up all of ours, almost eat the paper plate, lick it up, and wouldn't touch the store-bought. Has to blink first here, okay, in this professional plant. And in my view, it's up to the young people to develop a track record of stewardship so that they are worthy. That's a big issue. You've got to show you're worthy, which means you've got to be doing things. You've got to be creating a track record. In other words, you got to be working. You got to be serving somebody, and don't worry about how much you pay.
Well, if you made it this far, I compliment you on watching, for over an hour. I was thought a lot about cutting this video down, but there's just so much information in it. I'm going to end this video just as Joel did, talking about the youth. And at the end of the day, we can't be perpetually sustainable. We cannot expect the world to change just in one generation. It didn't get here in one generation. So I'd encourage all of you guys, involve the youth. Go out there, reach out to them, find some type of connection that brings them closer and closer to living free. See you, everybody.